For many, Halloween is a time of joy, costumes, candy, and spooky movie marathons. But for others, it's a haunting reminder of real-life horrors. Some have lost loved ones to tragedies that unfolded on Halloween night. While the season brings magic and mischief, it also carries dark tales, decorations that turned out to be real human remains, chilling crimes, and poisonings that forever scarred families. In today's video, we'll unmask the top 10 most disturbing things to ever happen on Halloween in history. Some of these stories may make you think twice before you knock on a stranger's door for candy. We're just kidding, but seriously, be careful this Halloween. Let's start with number 10, the 1991 Halloween blizzard. Well, Typhoon Yagi may be one of the most powerful storms of 2024, but let's rewind to 1991 when Halloween brought a different kind of terror. The 1991 Halloween blizzard wasn't a creepy tale from a haunted house. It was a brutal, real-life storm that hit the upper Midwest of the U.S. From October 31st to November 4th, what started as a calm Halloween night quickly turned into a cold nightmare. The weather took an eerie turn as snow began to fall in Minnesota, and by midnight, the Twin Cities had already recorded over 8 inches of snow, shattering all previous October records. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few days, the storm only worsened, dumping a record-breaking 37 inches of snow in some areas. Roads were buried, power lines snapped under the weight of ice, and over 100,000 people were left without electricity for days. Schools were shut down, businesses closed, and the region came to a standstill. It wasn't just an inconvenience, it was deadly. The storm claimed the lives of 22 people, with over 100 others injured, many from car accidents or exposure to the freezing cold. It was a Halloween no one would ever forget, reminding us that nature's wrath can be far more terrifying than any haunted house. Number 9. Patricia Ward. Now, this case is one of the most chilling. In late October of 2014, a resident of Farmingdale, Long Island, named Dale Silverman was driving home when he spotted something by the side of the road. At first glance, it looked like a Halloween decoration, until he realized something was horribly off. It appeared to be a head, but as he got closer, it became clear that it was no trick. What he thought was just another creepy Halloween prop turned out to be the gruesome remains of a woman named Patricia Ward, a well-loved member of the community. For about 20 minutes, the body lay untouched on the street as curious onlookers hesitantly approached, tapping it with their feet to see if it was fake. It wasn't. Soon, police swarmed the area, and the horrifying truth came to light. Patricia's attacker was none other than her own son, 35-year-old Derek Ward. He had brutally decapitated her before tossing her head across the street. But what's even more chilling is that Derek, who had a history of mental instability and was reportedly addicted to performance-enhancing drugs, didn't stop there. After committing this unimaginable act, he ended his own life by jumping in front of a train, a Halloween night like no other. Number 8. Peter Fabiano. Well, knocking on someone's door for trick-or-treat is pretty normal, right? But in the case of Peter Fabiano, this simple act would lead to a horrifying tragedy. In 1957, Peter, a 35-year-old hairstylist in Los Angeles, was at home with his wife, Betty, when he answered the door to what he assumed was just a late-night trick-or-treater. But moments after, Betty heard a deep voice, followed by the sound of a loud bang. Rushing downstairs, she found Peter lying on the floor, dying. He was pronounced dead soon after arriving at the hospital. The case didn't add up. There were no signs of a robbery, and the only witness, a young man, had seen a car speeding away from the scene. So, what happened? As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered a twisted web of betrayal. Betty had once considered leaving Peter and found solace in a close friendship with a woman named Joan Rabel. But when Betty and Peter reconciled, Joan felt betrayed and enraged. Joan seduced another woman, Goldine Pizer, and convinced her to kill Peter. Goldine, wearing a mask, waited outside the Fabiano home on Halloween night and shot Peter dead. After the killing, she stashed the weapon in a storage locker. 2 weeks later, detectives traced the weapon to Goldine and arrested both women. They were eventually sentenced to prison, with Goldine claiming she'd been easily influenced. A deadly trick, indeed. Number 7. The body. If you think Halloween decorations can sometimes look a little too realistic, you might want to reconsider next time you see something hanging around. Why? Well, in 2005, the residents of Frederica, Delaware were horrified to learn that what they had thought was just another elaborate Halloween decoration turned out to be something far darker, a real, lifeless body. The body of a 42-year-old woman who had taken her own life, hanging 15 feet above the ground. Throughout the day, people had passed by, even stopped to look, but assumed it was part of someone's over-the-top Halloween display. After all, it's not unusual for some people to go all out with their spooky setups. But as time went on, something didn't feel right. It wasn't until later that evening that the police were called to investigate. When they arrived, the scene they found was anything but festive. The body had been hanging in plain sight for hours before anyone thought to raise the alarm. As the wife of the mayor of Frederica later told the local paper, "They thought it was a Halloween decoration. It looked like something somebody would have rigged." Sadly, it wasn't. It was a tragedy hidden behind what seemed like a Halloween prank. Let's move to number 6. Liddell Peoples. On Halloween night in 2011, the holiday took a tragic and bizarre turn when Liddell Peoples, a man in his 30s, took the life of his girlfriend, Maria Adams, over something as absurd as a bag of Halloween candy. The couple had been celebrating the season together, but things escalated quickly when Liddell accused Maria of taking his Tootsie Rolls. The argument spiraled out of control, turning violent. During the struggle, Liddell grabbed a blade and attacked Maria, causing injuries so severe that she would later die from them. Liddell was arrested and initially faced a $2 million bond. However, as Maria's condition worsened and she passed away, the charges against him were upgraded to include murder. In a court statement, Liddell claimed he had been suffering from depression and substance abuse issues leading up to the incident. However, his apology did little to provide any clarity on his motivations or excuse the violent nature of his crime. Maria's family and friends were left in disbelief, unable to understand how a simple argument over candy had ended in such a devastating and unneeded tragedy. Liddell's actions that Halloween night have left a non-erasable permanent scar on his entire community. Number 5. Eric Matthew Copple. In Napa, California, Halloween 2004 was marked by an unimaginable tragedy. Eric Matthew Copple, a man who would eventually be sentenced to life in prison, committed the brutal murders of 2 women, Leslie Mazzara and Adrienne Snaw, during what should have been a night of fun and celebration. The 3 women had been celebrating Halloween, handing out candy to trick-or-treaters and enjoying the festivities. As the night wound down, they went to bed, unaware that a terrifying nightmare was about to unfold. Around 3 a.m., Lauren Mia, a friend of the 2 victims, woke to hear screams from upstairs. In panic, she fled the house and called the authorities. When police arrived, they found Leslie and Adrienne dead in their beds. Eric, who had been a family acquaintance, later confessed to the killings after turning himself in. Yet, even in his confession, Eric never provided a clear motive for his actions. Despite claiming he had been struggling with depression and addiction, his reasoning didn't offer much insight into the brutality of the crime. The chilling randomness of the murders and Eric's unexplained actions left everyone who knew him in shock. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Number 4. Indiana State Fairgrounds explosion. Well, if you thought Halloween celebrations were all about costumes and candy, The events at the Indiana State Fairgrounds in 1963 would make you think twice. On Halloween night, over 4,000 people were gathered in the Coliseum for a performance of Holiday on Ice when an explosion shook the building, causing a catastrophe that would haunt the state forever. The blast was caused by a leak in a liquefied petroleum gas tank stored beneath the grandstands. As the gas leaked into the area, it eventually ignited from an electrical heating element near the concession stand. The explosion killed several people seated directly above the gas leak, while the shock wave sent debris flying in all directions. As if this wasn't horrific enough, a second explosion occurred moments later due to another set of gas tanks that hadn't ignited. First responders were met with a gruesome scene as ambulances rushed more than 400 injured victims to local hospitals. Many suffered severe burns, broken bones, and other life-threatening injuries. In the aftermath, a grand jury indicted several individuals, including gas company employees and officials responsible for safety. Though the victims received settlements of $4.6 million, nothing could undo the trauma or erase the memories of that deadly Halloween night. Number 3. Shirley Lynette Ledford. Shirley Lynette Ledford's death on Halloween night in 1979 is the chilling final chapter of the infamous Toolbox Killers case. On that fateful night, Shirley, a young woman in her 20s, was hitchhiking home from a party when she was picked up by two men, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, who had already been targeting female hitchhikers. The two had a long history of abductions, torturing their victims with the tools they kept in their car before taking their lives in the most horrific ways imaginable. Shirley's abduction was just another stop in their murderous spree. After taking her to a remote location, Bittaker and Norris subjected her to unimaginable abuse before ending her life. They then callously discarded her body on a stranger's lawn, marking her as their fifth victim. Months later, Roy Norris confessed to a former inmate, Joseph Jackson, who took the courageous step of reporting the confessions to the police. This led to the arrest of Bittaker and Norris. Bittaker was sentenced to death, while Norris served a life sentence until his death in prison. Shirley's story is a haunting reminder of the pure evil that lurked behind the guise of normalcy. Number 2. The Yoshihiro Hattori. One of the most infuriating cases to ever happen on Halloween is the story of Yoshihiro Hattori, a Japanese exchange student who met his untimely death in 1992 in New Orleans. Yoshihiro was simply trying to attend a Halloween party, but due to his unfamiliarity with the area, he wandered up to the wrong house. Knocking on the door, thinking it was the right place, Yoshihiro was confronted by Rodney Pears, the homeowner. Thinking Yoshihiro was trespassing, Rodney opened fire, killing the young man on the spot. What makes this case even more infuriating is that Yoshihiro was not being threatened. He had simply knocked on the wrong door and turned away to leave when Rodney shot him. Despite the clear misunderstanding, Rodney claimed self-defense under the Castle Doctrine, a law that allows homeowners to use deadly force if they perceive a threat. The jury found Rodney not guilty, despite the fact that Yoshihiro was walking away and not armed. It's one of those cases that leaves you shaking your head, as it highlights the flaws in the justice system and the senselessness of the crime. Yoshihiro's death left his family and everyone who knew him devastated, and to this day, many still question the fairness of the verdict. Number 1. The Halloween Poisoning. While every Halloween tale has its fair share of creepy twists, the 1974 Halloween poisoning case remains one of the most chilling stories tied to the holiday. Ronald O'Brien, a seemingly ordinary man from Texas, would soon earn a sinister nickname, the Candyman, for all the wrong reasons. On that fateful night, O'Brien, who had been struggling with financial problems, decided to murder his 8-year-old son, Timothy, for a hefty life insurance payout. As they went trick-or-treating, Ronald handed Timothy a pixie stick filled with cyanide, a deadly poison. After returning home, Timothy eagerly ate the candy, unknowingly sealing his fate. Within hours, he collapsed, and tragically died. Ronald, attempting to cover his tracks, spun a story that someone in the neighborhood had poisoned the candy, making it look like a random act of malice. However, things quickly unraveled. Ronald had recently taken out several life insurance policies on Timothy, making the motive for murder painfully obvious. The police investigation revealed his sinister plot, and in 1975, Ronald was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. His case became a haunting reminder of the evil that can hide behind the facade of a loving dad. Ronald O'Brien remains infamous, forever remembered as the Pixie Sticks killer. What do you think? Is Halloween really just a time for fun, costumes, and candy? Or does it hold a darker side that we often overlook? Well, these real-life tragedies remind us that while we embrace the spooky season with laughter and thrills, there are unsettling moments in history that forever changed Halloween. From mysterious poisonings to shocking murders, these incidents serve as a chilling reminder of how easily the night can turn from festive to fatal. So, if you ever find yourself out trick-or-treating or celebrating, remember that not every scare comes from a ghost or ghoul. Some horrors are all too real. It's always important to stay aware and be cautious, because Halloween, for all its fun, can sometimes reveal a darker truth lurking beneath the surface. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.